I have been sitting here for God knows how long saying, okay, well, we don't know when we get Michael Thomas back, but maybe it's next week, maybe it's the week after. And we have some breaking news that he is now done, out for the season. Same thing with Rashod Bateman. So obviously, if you had Michael Thomas, if you had Rashod Bateman, time for you to maybe find someone else at the wide receiver position to go through and trade for. And this does make a massive impact for guys like Kamara, Olave, Likely, Andrews, Lamar. We have a lot to get into. But before we get into any of it, go down there, drop a like on this emergency live stream. Subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. Please let me know what you think down there in the comment section. I'll be trying to answer as many of those questions as I possibly can as well. And what I need you to do is go check out these props on Underdog Fantasy with the link in the comment section, the link in the live chat, the link in the description. When you sign up for Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And on top of this, I know I've been so annoying with it this week, but I've worked my butt off to get it for you. Only with promo code FLOCK, and I repeat, only with promo code FLOCK are you going to be getting the Derrick Henry special at over under half a rushing yard. Y'all know we did this a month ago with Cooper Kupp, only for people who use promo code FLOCK. We're doing the same thing because Underdog loves y'all. I worked so hard. So make sure you go down there, deposit $10 on Underdog. When you sign up with promo code FLOCK, that $10 will be automatically doubled to 20. Go take the over on the Derrick Henry half rushing yard line, available in damn near every state. But I think that should be about it. Let's go through. Let's dive into the first situation we have here regarding Rashod Bateman being out for the season. Now with Bateman, this kind of blindsided me. I thought there was an outside chance that maybe Michael Thomas and his injury lingered until the end of the year. Maybe we were just shaking our heads with that the entire season. But with Rashod Bateman, I was sitting here going, okay, what? Is this 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks? No, Bateman done for good. And with Devin Duvernay, of course, you know I've said it a million times. I'm annoying you with this as well, but it's one of the very few cool stories I actually have. I used to see our guy Devin Duvernay at the rec at the University of Texas at Austin, Hook'em Lawrence. And I want to go through and I want to root for Devin Duvernay. But in the past, we were saying, okay, well, even if we want to root for our guy, it's going to be hard to go through, pick up Devin Duvernay and view him as a must-start guy any given week. He's a great wide receiver too for an NFL offense. But at the same time, it's hard to imagine that we're ever excited about him as a weekly starter. Well, since then, this situation has entirely changed. Where if you were looking at this receiving core right now in Baltimore, oh dear God, let's pull up this depth chart, okay? First thing, let me have a quick side note. For my best ball teams that I wasted a pick on with Will Fuller, come on, the Ravens, come on, Jim Harbaugh, please do anything. Call up Will Fuller. I know he's off the grid. I know he's off the mat. I have no idea where Will Fuller is. Make him an offer he can't refuse. You need Will Fuller coming in. Because if we are looking at this depth chart right now in Baltimore, oh my gosh, at wide receiver, now that Rashod Bateman's out for the season, here's your core. Devin Duvernay, Demarcus Robinson, James Prochet, Tylan Wallace, and that's it. And knowing that you have the Andrews injury as well, the number one option you're supposed to have in the receiving game with Mark Andrews is out. They need to make a move. Please go pick up Will Fuller. Go sign Odell Beckham Jr. Obviously, you should have traded for Brandon Cooks. I don't know what you were sitting around wasting your time with. But this means I think you bump up Duvernay, especially in any game that Andrews misses, as someone that is always going to be a borderline flex option for you. Of course, I may be a little bit biased here, Hook'em Lawrence. Now, going over to New Orleans, with Michael Thomas missing, this has more implications than just Chris Olave. Because y'all know with Alvin Kamara, this was a running back that we traded for everywhere at the beginning portion of the season when people were very concerned on Kamara, when the man had what, like 6 fantasy points? I'm sorry, maybe 16 fantasy points through the first month. It was gross. He was dealing with an injury. And Alvin Kamara was our number one buy low candidate. But I said, maybe you would have been interested in seeing what we could get with Alvin Kamara if you wanted to go through and sell him before you had Michael Thomas, Jameis Winston, Jarvis Landry, all coming back in. Because at that point, you were going to be in a situation where there were so many guys getting targets in New Orleans that, and if Winston was the starting quarterback, inherently, he would be worse than Dalton for Kamara and the checkdowns we are looking for. Well, now that Jameis flat out got benched last week while being 100% healthy, and at the same time, Michael Thomas out for the season, Alvin Kamara is locked and loaded. I mean, borderline top 5 running back going forward in a PPR format. And also, this means Chris Olave, another wide receiver that I thought the situation may get a little bit worse for him going forward if Thomas were to be able to come back. Obviously, Olave going to be more appealing. Chris Olave has been dominant as of late. If you're looking at where I rank Chris Olave just for this week, we had him as the wide receiver 13 in the same tier of guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Michael Pittman. And honestly, I think if we're projecting Olave going forward, you may need to move him a little bit higher than this. Because if you are looking at Chris Olave, while yes, this past week it wasn't great because what did we have? We had Alvin Kamara dominating with literally every single touch in this offense. Chris Olave before that had been phenomenal. And quick side note, looks like we just hit 100 likes in the stream. Thank you, everyone. And if you haven't dropped a like in the live stream, fix your life right now. Hit that like button. But if we are looking at this with Olave this past week, only 7 targets, 5 receptions, 52 receiving yards. But previous to that, in a game where literally the Raiders got shut out, I don't think that the New Orleans Saints are going to be shutting out many teams going into the future. Chris Olave, starting in week 2, 13 targets, 7 targets, 6 targets, 14 targets. So Chris Olave is right there, averaging 10 targets a game. Honestly, I think he may be a little bit better going forward too, if we're going to be honest. If we look at the fact that his touchdown rate is incredibly low so far this season, you only have 2 touchdowns to the first 63 targets of his entire NFL career. I mean, of course, you are going to naturally assume that any receiver in New Orleans maybe does have a lower touchdown rate than average, with the pesky freaking Taysom Hill stealing those rushing touchdowns. And going over to Taysom Hill, this had been a tight end that we were saying maybe you want to go through and sell high on. Taysom Hill had been crushing it with no Jameis, no Jarvis, no Thomas. We were saying, okay, well, if these guys come back in, then all of a sudden they're going to need Taysom Hill just a little bit less. Well, now Jameis gets benched for good. You have Michael Thomas out for good. And I think you have Taysom Hill as that borderline tight end option every single week for good. So this helps Taysom Hill just because it's going to be harder to remove him when you don't have that Michael Thomas weapon in this offense. And then obviously with Jarvis Landry, if Jarvis were to be able to come back soon, if Jarvis starts to see volume in a full PPR format, maybe you could be interested. But Jarvis is so limited at this point of his NFL career that I'd be surprised if you were to be able to come back from an injury where you have Chris Olave as a dominant option in this offense as that alpha wide receiver target, and for Jarvis Landry to be someone that we're super excited about rest of season. So Jarvis may be worth the roster spot when he's healthy. Bump up Kamara to a consistent top 5 option. Bump up Chris Olave to that top 12 wide receiver rest of season. And this keeps Taysom Hill as that borderline tight end play going forward. Now, going back over to Baltimore, there's one other thing that we need to focus in on, and that is Lamar Jackson. So last week, before the Rashod Bateman injury, before Mark Andrews went down as well, we looked at Lamar Jackson as a quarterback that you're about to see the craziest split that ever. I mean, maybe if you watched the videos last week, you would have seen us already talk about this. But with Lamar Jackson through the first 3 weeks of the year, if we include the rushing touchdowns, the man through the first 3 weeks was averaging 4 touchdowns a game. Then following up with that, the next month, Lamar Jackson, the next month, had 3 touchdowns total. That lined up right with the Rashod Bateman injury. That lined up right with the Mark Andrews injury. So we were saying to go through and maybe buy low on Lamar Jackson with these players coming back in and elevating the overall offense. So now that Andrews is injured, now that Bateman's out for the entire year, I think Lamar Jackson, of course, is not going to continue to average less than 1 touchdown a game. That is an extreme outlier. I mean, I think that you're probably going to find a happy medium between the 4 touchdowns a game we had at the beginning of the season and the less than 1 touchdown a game that we had for that month-long stretch. But I think you should be a little bit concerned if you're a Lamar owner. We had someone in the live stream last night asking us, should we trade Lamar Jackson and a depth wide receiver? I think the name was maybe Deontay Johnson, someone of the sort, and go get Josh Allen. And if Bateman's out for the year, that's 100% going to be a deal that we're looking to do. If you can go and pivot up to a truly elite level quarterback that you don't have to be worried about, I would be excited. But I think that should be it in terms of the impacts that we have on these guys. Obviously, from a dynasty perspective, this kills any value that Michael Thomas has. And we just updated those dynasty rankings, so we're going to have to go take a look at those again. But before we end this, go down there, drop a like on the live stream. We already hit 200 likes in the stream, so thank you so much, everybody supporting. And also, make sure you go down there, hit that subscribe button. Leave anything you have in the comment section. And in that comment section, in that live chat, you will also find a link to Underdog Fantasy. When you sign up for Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 200. You can check out all these player props. The less than 86.5 yards on Dameon Pierce may be a little bit intriguing there. And only with promo code FLOCK, because I worked my butt off to get you this, are you going to get the Derrick Henry free bet this weekend. So please make sure you take advantage of that. You can find the link in the comment section. Find it in the live chat, available in damn near every state. Bobcat does ask a good question regarding the usage of Isaiah Likely with Rashod Bateman being out. Yes, I do think that Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews are probably both going to be on the field a ton together in the second half of this season, as this team with the very thin wide receiver depth chart that we just looked at, guys like Demarcus Robinson being their number 2 now. I think you're going to get a lot of Isaiah Likely, a lot of Mark Andrews into tight end packages. But thank you again. I appreciate all of you. I hope that you have a great day. This is about to be the ugliest Thursday night performance we've ever seen. And I will see you after the game so we can go through and talk about how bad it was.